From the ancient, mysterious maps of Antarctica to blood falls, the icy mummies of seals, and even giant pyramids hidden beneath the ice, the snowy continent holds far more secrets than we can imagine. Today on the TopFacts channel, 15 of the most impressive discoveries made at the southern edge of the planet. Make yourself comfortable. It is going to be genuinely fascinating. Antarctica is not only a land of icy deserts, but also a true testing ground for incredible scientific discoveries. Here, amid the cold and the perpetual darkness, scientists from the University of New South Wales made a sensation. They discovered microorganisms that are able to feed on air. These tiny bacteria do not need sunlight or the warmth of the planet's interior. They require only hydrogen, carbon monoxide, and carbon dioxide to sustain life. Moreover, they can withstand extreme conditions: sharp temperature swings, ultraviolet radiation, freezing and thawing, drought, and complete darkness. The scientists analyzed soil samples collected in the Robinson Ridge and Adams Flat areas and identified two new types of bacteria, WPS2 and AD3. Their unique ability to literally extract energy from the air opens new horizons for science. After all, if such creatures can survive in the harshest conditions on Earth, who knows? Perhaps similar life exists on other planets as well. This discovery overturns our very understanding of what life is and what forms it can take. And, admit it, the very idea of air eaters somewhere under the Antarctic ice sounds like the beginning of a science fiction novel. When we imagine mountains, we picture majestic peaks reaching for the sky. They provide the backdrop for astonishing landscapes and beckon explorers. But beneath the ice of Antarctica lies something that was hard even to conceive: an entire mountain range that looks like the European Alps. Armed with radar and gravity sensors, scientists began an expedition to map the subglacial regions of the Gamburtsev Mountains. Many expected to find a flat plateau, but instead, the instruments revealed a breathtaking relief. Peaks and valleys preserved in pristine condition beneath a 2-kilometer-thick layer of ice. Geophysicist Fauzia Fakoli from the British Antarctic Survey explained, "The fact that these jagged, sharp peaks survived means that the ice sheet formed very quickly, as if it canned the ancient landscape beneath it." This discovery changes scientists' ideas about how glaciers formed and how vulnerable they are to global warming. After all, if the ice once appeared so rapidly, who can say how quickly it might disappear? Now let us move to one of the most troubling objects in Antarctica. We are talking about the colossal Thwaites Glacier, which scientists have nicknamed the Doomsday Glacier. This gigantic mass of ice, located in the west of the continent, has kept the entire scientific world on edge for many years. Its width reaches approximately 120 kilometers, and it acts as a giant barrier holding back an enormous amount of ice in West Antarctica. If Thwaites begins to collapse rapidly, neighboring glaciers may follow, which would lead to a global rise in sea level. That is why the name Doomsday does not just sound frightening, it is quite justified. Scientists already see alarming signs. Warm ocean waters are undermining the glacier from below, and its grounding line is gradually retreating. Predicting a scenario of total collapse is difficult, but the consequences would be catastrophic for coastal regions around the world. It is important to understand, Thwaites is not the only indicator of global change, but it is like a symbol of how fragile Earth's climate system is. Its fate directly depends on how the planet's temperature changes, and that is precisely why this glacier is under especially close observation. Among the many discoveries in Antarctica, there is one that especially fires the imagination. We are talking about a mysterious pyramid discovered in satellite images in the year 2009. This enormous object, seemingly hidden beneath the ice, strikingly resembles the pyramids of Egypt, with 4 even triangular faces and almost perfect symmetry. Many researchers and conspiracy theorists have asked the question, could this be the work of an ancient civilization that might have existed here before Antarctica turned into an icy desert? Some suggest it is a monument of a vanished culture. Others speak of possible extraterrestrial origins, while skeptics are sure it is nothing more than a quirk of nature and a play of light in the images. But one thing is undeniable. The very thought that an artificial structure could be hidden beneath the ice cap turns our understanding of history upside down. After all, Antarctica is the last place on Earth where one would expect such a discovery. This astonished even experienced polar explorers. On the slopes of the McMurdo Dry Valleys, dozens of kilometers from the sea, scientists found the bodies of seals perfectly preserved by the icy dryness of the air. These mummies lay there for hundreds and possibly thousands of years, yet they looked as if the animals had died only recently. The main mystery is how marine creatures ended up so far from the water. One version says that strong storm winds blew the seals off course and they became lost in the snows, eventually dying from cold and hunger. Another theory suggests that the animals deliberately went deep into the continent in search of new colony sites, but could not survive. These icy mummies became an invaluable gift to science. Thanks to the extremely dry climate and sub-zero temperatures, tissues were so well preserved that researchers were able to study not only the external appearance, but also the internal organs of the animals. This made it possible to learn more about what the seals ate, what diseases they suffered from, and how the ecosystem of the Southern Ocean changed over the past centuries. Far from prying eyes, in the cold waters of the South Atlantic, lies a little-known but extremely important feature: the South Sandwich Trench. This deep-sea oceanic trough remained a mystery for a long time. Only in the 1980s, with the help of seismic studies, were scientists able to fully record its dimensions and characteristics. Here, 2 lithospheric plates collide, the South American and the South Sandwich. One dives beneath the other, forming a subduction zone. This means that powerful earthquakes and volcanic activity are possible in this area. The trench has become a true laboratory for researchers. It holds the keys to understanding how oceanic depths are formed and what forces are hidden in the bowels of the planet. Every new step in studying it reveals more mysteries and reminds us how little we know about the depths of the world ocean. Beneath Antarctica's ice, there are not only rocks and frozen waters, but true time capsules. Scientists have discovered the most ancient DNA samples here, which managed to survive for millions of years. These finds are called sedimentary ancient DNA, or cDNA, and they literally open doors into Earth's distant past. It all began in the year 2019, when researchers from the International Ocean Discovery Program carried out work in the Scotia Sea, north of Antarctica. In bottom sediments, they accidentally found fragments of DNA, and later, during analysis, it turned out that some of them had been preserved for more than 1 million years. For comparison, the previous record belonged to DNA from the Arctic permafrost, about 650,000 years. Interestingly, most of the samples found belong to eukaryotes, that is, plants, animals, and fungi rather than bacteria or viruses. However, a significant portion of the material belongs to diatoms, microscopic organisms that today form the foundation of marine ecosystems. These genetic traces are like pieces of a mosaic that make it possible to reconstruct the planet's climatic history. They show that about 5 million years ago, there were large surges of phytoplankton activity in the Southern Ocean. This means that the climate in ancient times was very different, and studying this DNA helps us understand what changes await us in the future. Imagine a river stretching for almost 460 kilometers, hidden under a kilometer-thick layer of ice. This is not fantasy, but the reality of Antarctica. Scientists discovered a giant subglacial river that flows toward the Weddell Sea, gathering waters beneath 4 of the most powerful glaciers. It was discovered using ice-penetrating radar during airborne surveying. And when it became clear that beneath the ice lies a system of rivers and lakes connected to one another, it became a true scientific shock. The basin of this river is comparable in area to France and Germany combined. Its waters flow beneath the Institute, Mueller, Academy, and Foundation glaciers and then go straight into the sea. And what is especially important, if these masses of ice begin to melt actively, the underground river could accelerate the process and lead to a catastrophic rise in global sea level, up to 14 meters. Of course, this will not happen in a single day, but the very fact of such an underground water artery makes scientists look differently at the future of Antarctica and our entire planet. It seems incredible that in the realm of cold, icy winds and polar night life can exist, but Antarctica once again breaks stereotypes. Here, right beneath the ice, entire concentrations of phytoplankton, tiny photosynthesizing organisms, were discovered, not only surviving, but actively multiplying. The study was led by physicist Christopher Horvat from the University of Auckland. His team used special instruments, underwater Argo sensors, which made more than 2,000 dives in the Southern Ocean from 2014 to 2021. They collected water samples and recorded the presence of pigments characteristic of phytoplankton. The result was a sensation. Almost 90% of the measurements showed a sharp increase in phytoplankton biomass, even before the sea ice began to retreat. It turns out that even under thick ice, sun rays penetrate sufficiently for photosynthesis, forming entire under-ice, blooming gardens. This discovery is of colossal significance. It not only changes our ideas about life in extreme conditions, but also suggests that if such organisms can exist here, perhaps similar life exists on other worlds, for example, on Europa or Enceladus. Today, Antarctica is a kingdom of ice, but millions of years ago it was a very different land. Scientists have found evidence that during the Cretaceous period, about 75 million years ago, there were regular forest fires here. A group of paleobotanists from Brazil and Chile conducted the research. On King George Island, they found samples of ancient vegetation whose traces preserved charcoal inclusions. This means that the plants repeatedly underwent burning. The cause of the fires was active volcanoes, whose eruptions constantly ignited Antarctica's dense forests. And this discovery changes our understanding of the continent's past. It turns out it was not always a frozen realm, but at one time it was a living, fiery land. These data are also important because they show that Antarctica's climate and nature have changed more than once. And today's global warming is merely a new turn in a long history of change. There is one Antarctic mystery that has puzzled scientists for decades: huge holes in the ice, so-called Polynyas. They appear suddenly right in the middle of the ice cover and then disappear as if they never existed. Such strange openings were first noticed back in the 1970s thanks to satellites. At the time, they seemed like something random. But in the year 2017, something extraordinary happened. In the coldest months, when the ice should be especially strong, a gigantic Polynya, almost 4,000 square kilometers in area, opened right in the middle of Antarctica. Over 2 months, it expanded to incredible dimensions and then disappeared again with the arrival of summer. Scientists puzzled over what causes such phenomena for a long time. Only recently did a team from New York University in Abu Dhabi find an explanation. Powerful cyclones are to blame. When warm and cold air masses collide over the South Pole, hurricane-force winds with speeds of more than 100 kilometers per hour arise. They raise huge waves up to 16 meters high, tearing the ice apart and creating these enormous holes. But such Polynyas are not just a curious anomaly. They play a crucial role in the ecosystem. They become passageways for seals and penguins, and places where phytoplankton develops actively. Moreover, scientists believe that such phenomena can be indicators of climate change, because as cyclones intensify, Polynyas will appear more often, affecting both the atmosphere and the ocean. Antarctica hides not only rivers and mountains under the ice, but an entire network of volcanoes. Scientists from the University of Edinburgh made a sensation. Under the western part of the continent, they found nearly 100 subglacial volcanoes. Some of them are comparable in height to alpine giants, reaching 4 kilometers. Until that moment, no one even suspected that there could be so many volcanic peaks here. It is now clear that West Antarctica surpasses even East Africa in the number of volcanoes, although East Africa was previously considered one of the world's main volcanic regions. These volcanoes are asleep for now, but their presence is alarming. If an eruption occurs, it could seriously disrupt the balance of the ice sheet. Lava flows and heat could weaken the ice shields, accelerating their movement into the ocean. This, in turn, would lead to a faster rise in sea level. Researchers warn that melting ice due to global warming could even awaken some of these volcanoes. The less pressure the ice cap exerts, the easier it is for volcanoes to break through to the surface. In Earth's history, such cases have already occurred. In Iceland and Alaska, after the end of the Ice Age, volcanoes became particularly active. Antarctica could well repeat this scenario, and this discovery is a troubling signal for all humankind. History knows many mysterious artifacts, but the Piri Reis Map rightfully stands among the most astonishing. It was created in the year 1513 by the famous Ottoman admiral and is kept within the walls of Topkapi Palace in Istanbul. The map amazed scholars with its incredible level of detail. The Americas are depicted on it, officially discovered only decades later. But what is most astounding is that one can discern the outlines of Antarctica on the map, and not in an icy shell, but with mountain chains and a coastline, as if the cartographer had seen it in prehistoric times. How did Piri Reis manage to put on a map what modern science uncovered only thanks to satellites? There are versions that he relied on ancient charts lost over time, but there are also bolder hypotheses. Some speak of a vanished civilization with incredible knowledge, others of extraterrestrial sources, or even of time travel. Skeptics, of course, doubt the accuracy of the details and consider the map merely a set of coincidences. But the fact remains. The artifact forces us to reconsider the usual notions of how much humanity actually knew about the planet in deep antiquity. Amid the endless white landscapes of Antarctica, there is a place that looks as if nature itself decided to create a frightening spectacle. These are the so-called blood falls, flowing from Taylor Glacier in the McMurdo Dry Valleys. This phenomenon was first noticed back in the year 1911 by geologist Griffith Taylor, and since then, it has captured the imagination of both scientists and ordinary travelers. Imagine a stream of bright red water gushing from a snow-white mass of ice, as if the Earth itself were bleeding. In reality, there's no mysticism here, the water is saturated with iron and salt. When it contacts the air, oxidation occurs, and the liquid acquires the characteristic rusty red hue. The source of this eerie flow of blood is a subglacial lake that turned out to be isolated from the outside world for millions of years. There, in conditions of complete darkness, cold, and high salinity, a unique ecosystem formed. Microorganisms live in the water that can exist in extreme conditions where life would seem impossible. This discovery is especially important for science. It shows how resilient life is and how it can adapt even to the harshest conditions. Moreover, studying the blood glacier helps scientists better understand how life could have arisen on other planets. After all, if microbes have survived here, why could they not exist, for example, on Mars or on the icy moons of Jupiter and Saturn? And finally, a discovery that looks more like a shot from a sci-fi movie. In the cold depths of the Southern Ocean off the coast of Antarctica, scientists discovered a new, astonishing creature dubbed the Antarctic strawberry sea lily. At first glance, this being seems extraterrestrial. It has about 20 long arms, some smooth and some feathered. It can reach a length of 20 centimeters, and it truly resembles a strawberry, only with bizarre hands reaching in all directions. This find belongs to marine biologist Greg Rouse and his team from the University of California. The scientists studied the ocean depths for a long time and discovered not only this species, but several previously unknown varieties of feather stars. All of them belong to the echinoderms, the closest relatives of sea stars and sea urchins. The special feature of the new creature is that its small, strawberry-like bumps at the tips of its arms help it cling tightly to the seafloor, while the arms themselves serve as a trap for food. Previously, science knew of only one similar species in Antarctica, and now there are 8. This discovery shows that there are far more forms of life hidden beneath the ice of the Southern Ocean than we are used to thinking. And perhaps the most amazing finds are still ahead of us. If you enjoyed our episode, then right now go watch our previous videos that have appeared on your screen. See you on the TopFacts channel.